Welcome back into another edition of the Arrowhead Pride Report. It is Friday, September 29th, just 2 days away from the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football. Taylor Swift might be there again. That might be the biggest thing they're talking about on Sunday Night Football instead of the Chiefs actually playing football. Hopefully it's another blowout win for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's Friday. We've got our thoughts on this game coming up, our predictions. We're going to recap yesterday's injury report. As always, you can leave questions in the comments section. We'll try to get to them at the end of the show. Sween, Thursday Night Football. I am very frustrated with the Detroit Lions because the Green Bay Packers were so bad in the first half that they just ran the ball the entire second half. I might add, you also gave the Packers as your pick at the very end of yesterday's Arrowhead Pride Report, and that did not turn out very well if anybody took your advice.
Yeah, I looked more into the game later in the day, and I started to realize, well, with an injured offensive line for Green Bay and Aiden Hutchinson on the other side, maybe I gave some bad advice, so I apologize. I'll try to do my research ahead of the final Thursday report from now on.
Yeah, that was for fantasy owners everywhere. I think Thursday night was kind of frustrating. If you had Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown with as many times as David Montgomery got to touch the ball in the second half of that football game. But
people aren't respecting the Lions offense yet. I think they eventually will. I just think we're not used to this being the Lions, and their offense is about as efficient as Kansas City, if not, right up there with the top tier of the NFL. So if they can get that defense right, they have just as much a chance as anybody in the NFC. So maybe the Chiefs will get their shot of revenge later next year, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a very good Detroit Lions team, and I think people underrated their win against the Chiefs in Week 1. But They look very good so far this season. But got a lot to catch up on. No Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift updates. I've already been getting comments on Twitter from last night's edition of Show and BK where we opened the show talking about this whole situation for about 15 minutes. But it's the biggest story in all of Chiefs football, in all of the NFL right now. So if you had issues with it, you can skip ahead about the first 20 minutes on Show and BK and get to the football talk. But we had a fun conversation about this whole Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce situation and just the economy that's booming around them right now.
It's about to be fed again. She's confirmed to be going to Sunday Night Football. So if you're sick of it, I don't know what to tell you. Unfortunately for you, I don't blame you for this, but strap in because this is now going to be a national game that she's at.
So let's get into Thursday's injury report. And Nick Bolton continues to not practice with that ankle injury. It seems at this point, especially just based on what the Chiefs have done in the past, it seems pretty unlikely he's going to be available on Sunday Night Football against the Jets, which I think what we saw from Drew Tranquill last week is going to be fine. I think the Chiefs defense will be fine, and I think they'll be able to win this football game even without Nick Bolton. Noah Gray was out again. I think that's an illness designation, so maybe he'll be available still and return to practice on Friday. And then Jalen Watson was the addition on Thursday that could be concerning for the Chiefs as he pops up on the injury report and did not practice on Thursday.
Yeah, I spotted Jalen Watson at the brief media look that we have, which usually indicates that they're just being cautious. And I think he still has a chance. We'll see what his designation is when we get the Friday injury report and the official statuses. I'm doubtful on Nick Bolton. Seems like this ankle injury is lingering. I'm not going to go as far as to say you should be worried about IR because I feel like the Chiefs are probably looking at it and not putting him on IR because they're saying he'll be back sometime within the next 4 weeks. If you're going to be out 4 weeks, you might as well be on IR so you have the spot. And so I'm assuming here that the Chiefs are being cautious. They'll never admit it again at the podium. This is the New York Jets, as Willie Gay said about the passing offense. They like to run the football, and so you don't necessarily need Nick Bolton maybe for this game. And Drew Tranquill did a really nice job. And one important note on the Drew Tranquill fill-in, because it looks like we're headed that way again, Steve, and this kind of stuck out to me. Kind of obvious, but once I heard Drew say it, it just adds more weight to it. But he said it's actually harder to have all the calls at Arrowhead. It's probably the hardest place in the NFL because of that home field advantage, that loudness. You got to know all the signs, and it's actually easier on the road. So in the MLB or Pee Wee, he already got the weighted bat swings in, and it should be seamless to me if he has to step in again on Sunday Night Football, because again, when you're in New York and you're playing New York, it's very quiet when you're on defense. So.
I don't know if you saw the clip of Derek Carr a couple of weeks ago, but he puts tape over the holes in his helmet, and he said he started doing that at Arrowhead so he could hear the play calls. Maybe Drew Tranquil needs to do that at Arrowhead Stadium, because that's
Tape
not
his
something
head.
I had ever considered.
Those those extra protection helmets kind of look like you're bubble wrapped, so it
Yeah.
wouldn't be the worst thing aesthetically.
So shouldn't be an issue on Sunday night, but maybe Drew Tranquil needs to try that out moving forward at Arrowhead Stadium if Nick Bolton misses any more time.
Yeah.
I also want to mention Kadarius Toney, Chris Jones, and Donovan Smith were all listed as limited on Thursday. I don't think that means that we need to be worried about their status for this game. Chris Jones, they're kind of easing him back into. We haven't seen him play a full allotment of snaps yet. I kind of am trending in the direction of this just being a weekly thing with Toney now, where he's kind of always got something lingering and popping up, and the Chiefs don't trust that he is going to be fully healthy. And so he's going to be on a snap count probably. And that's probably how they're going to deploy him. And that we've seen them deploy him that way with success. Donovan Smith was listed on the injury report, but he practiced Wednesday, was limited Thursday. I'm not too worried about that either.
Yeah, I wonder about Kadarius Toney. I think you're right. I think it's at a point where the Chiefs were hopeful, if he were to be healthy this season, that they could build the offense sort of through him and Kelsey in almost like a dual threat type of deal. But hard to really game plan around a guy who just cannot stay consistently on the field. And so I think it's through Kelsey. To me, it's just like it's been in previous years, where it's like Kelsey's obviously going to be your primary target, your primary go-to. And then each week, I know, Steve, you love fantasy football. It's going to be a different player, I think, after him every week. And that could be Justin Watson, right? That could be Sky Moore. I think Rashee Rice is going to have a couple weeks where he's the next guy. And so kind of what we thought it would be if Toney wasn't healthy at the beginning of the year. Maybe at some point down the line, he can put a few games together and you could start to maybe game plan. But I think you're right. I mean, I think he'll have packages, and if he's unavailable, he's unavailable. We saw him only get a handful of snaps last game. So that's kind of where we're at with Kadarius. The good news for Chiefs fans is Kelsey feels like he's 100% now after that week 1 scare where he was held out.
So I want to preview this game a little bit. We can give predictions if we want to. I think it's pretty safe to assume we probably both assume the Chiefs are going to win this football game, specifically because of Zach Wilson. And we saw Willie Gay kind of come under fire earlier this week, at least on social media, for a video that was pretty blatantly taken out of context when he was talking about the Jets offense. And everything Willie Gay said was honest about this Jets offense, where we know that Jets defense is elite and we know they can give you a lot of problems. I think it's a top 5 defense in the NFL. But their offense with Zach Wilson as the quarterback simply cannot put up points. They are not reliable on a weekly basis to go out there and finish drives and get in the end zone. And we've seen that since his entire career, basically, so far in the NFL. So I think the matchup to really watch, because that Jets defense is going to give the Chiefs offense some problems. But at the end of the day, it's Patrick Mahomes, and you believe that him and Kelsey and the rest of that unit are going to be able to find a way to put up some points. Whereas I don't think you can say that about Zach Wilson and the Jets. So I think this is an interesting matchup for the Chiefs defense, where they can continue to assert their dominance, but it's also an opportunity to get guys more involved. If you don't have a Nick Bolton available, if you don't have a Jalen Watson available or something like that, it's an opportunity to see what you got in these other guys, kind of like they did last week against the Bears, where they basically pulled the starters in the second half.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this game works. I think that the toughest matchup for the Chiefs is that Jets front, against what is their offensive line that I think is still finding its footing to an extent. I did note that this has been the best protection so far of Patrick Mahomes' career on Twitter. Next Gen Stats tell us he's only getting pressured, so to speak, on what would be 25% of snaps. So you like, I think, what the Chiefs have been able to do in that sense. And because of the Jets front and just how good it is, I think maybe you see some type of extra help there. Blake Bell, some pass protection, maybe a little bit more of McKinnon, who ends up being, your best pass blocking running back. I think the Jets coming into the year on paper were one of these teams where you thought, okay, they can be right there with sometimes how the Cowboys have looked as far as the, the defense that's going to clearly be the best in the league. And if you go to DVOA through what is 3 weeks here, and Steve, this is really interesting. The Chiefs defense is 9th. The Jets 17th in the league, which is surprising. Kind of what we were saying about, I don't think the Lions get enough offensive respect. I think we might be looking at this game and just assuming, oh, that's these big bad Jets, and they've been exploited, I think, this year. So it could get a little bit more out of hand, I think, than people realize. This is another game to me where if the Chiefs simply take care of the football, they have an advantage on both sides, as it turns out, and it could get ugly fast, similar to the beginning of what was that Thursday night game, and maybe look a lot like last week. Your team is clearly better. Take care of the football, and it should be easy breezy, and a lot of shots to the sweets on Sunday Night Football, Steve.
It's funny that you mentioned that about the Chiefs defense. And obviously this week, Pro Football Focus rated Trent McDuffie as their highest rated cornerback in the NFL so far this season, because he's been spectacular. And he's kind of flying under the radar because it's the Chiefs and it's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and now Taylor Swift, and the defense kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit, but they've been excellent through the first 3 games of the season. And we actually had this conversation on the latest edition of Show MBK, so you can go check that out on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. But it was like, is the Chiefs defense or is the Jets defense really the best defense that's in Sunday night's game?
No.
And I actually argued that the Chiefs are the best defensive unit right now, because just top to bottom, everything they've shown, and you can argue about the schedule or whatever, like, I think the Lions and Jacksonville are both really talented offenses. The Chiefs defense gave a lot of problems, and the Bears are the Bears. Like, they dominated them, and that's what you should do in that matchup. But the Chiefs defense, top to bottom right now, is playing like one of the absolute best units in the NFL, and their depth across the board, I think, is what's been most impressive to me, where they've got guys showing flashes on a weekly basis, and the way that they're able to rotate everybody in and out of that lineup. Like, Spags is loving this unit right now. He loves everything he can do with these guys.
You got Chris Jones back, and I think that's been such a boost. The defense looked pretty good without him week 1, but you also have George Karlaftis that has gotten off to a much faster start. Now, he's not necessarily getting the sacks that you saw at the end of the season like he was, but pressure-wise, I believe he's got 16 pressures, which is near the top of the league. And you have Jones there, and that's your first level. Mike Dana has clearly taken a step, but these are just no names when you talk about these guys nationally. Andy Reid in recent weeks has gone out of his way to just praise Derek Nottie as a run stopper. You get to that second level right now, you're missing Bolton, but very clearly you have a really nice backup in Drew Tranquill, who the guys end up trusting there. Leo Chenal in that overhang mix-up joker type of role, I think, is scaring people. Willie Gay, I think, is better than he was maybe at the coverage. Then you get to that cornerback level. Quietly, Trent McDuffie is playing like an all-pro. L'Jarius Sneed has always been solid. I thought he had a slow start because he missed a lot of football, but now he's kind of settled in too. And then Justin Reed very clearly has just a better understanding of the defense. So you have these guys in last game, Tranquill and Reed, getting these guys into position. He's really taken an advanced step. And shoot, you want to talk about how Zach Wilson is manning the offense and how the Chiefs have had one good week. Perhaps the best unit on the field is the Chiefs defense heading into this game.
And you didn't even mention Joshua Williams, who is another Chiefs cornerback who's flying under the radar, and he's been excellent so far this season. Like, just top to bottom, the Chiefs defense as a unit deserves a lot more credit than they're getting right now, and they're kind of being overlooked. I get it. There's some great defensive squads in the NFL right now, but the Chiefs are right there in the mix with the best in the entire league. So
McDuffie, I asked Dave Merritt yesterday. They gave us the assistants. I asked him about McDuffie and being number 1, and Dave Merritt was like, "I didn't even know that, but I see it." And he just really noted that for his age, McDuffie is among the best he's ever coached. And so brace yourselves, because I think the Chiefs are going to want to pay this particular defensive back. I know that's a little bit down the road here, but they got themselves a freaking stud in Trent McDuffie, and I think that's going to be somebody that you're going to want to keep.
We got no questions again this week. I'm going to blame it on the matchups because it's the Bears, it's the Jets. I feel like everybody's pretty confident in the Chiefs beating the Jets on Sunday Night Football. So,
Yeah.
he's Pete Sweeney. You can follow him on Twitter at PG Sween. Make sure you are locked into everything that we are doing at arrowheadpride.com. We've got a Fresh Kingdom Keys dropping for you guys tomorrow ahead of Sunday Night Football against the New York Jets. I'm Stephen Serda. That's where you can find me. As always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing right here on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Got plenty of stuff coming your way this weekend ahead of Sunday Night Football, and then you can hear me and Rocky Magana break down the game immediately after Sunday Night Football when the Chiefs hopefully leave New York with a win over the New York Jets. We'll talk to you then.
Sweeney over Sweeney. Go Cuse. Be